All right guys, on today's video, we are gonna be talking about fishing on Chilko Lake alone, season 8. And we're also gonna be remaking the little bottle cap lure that you saw me make and use in episode 1. So stick around. Also, as you can see, we've got a pretty good start on the shelter. The boys and I are gonna be rebuilding this whole thing, the fireplace and everything, in a future video, so stay tuned for that. All right, so apparently people get offended when I ask people to subscribe to the channel, so I'm not gonna do that. Let's get right into it. So if you decide to take fishing stuff as one of your 10 items, all you get with that is a handful of hooks and 300 yards of monofilament. And you gotta figure out how to use that to catch fish out of whatever body of water you're on. Now for us, on Chilko Lake, the local regulations there, which we had to adhere to, call for barbless hooks and artificial lures. There's no bait on that lake. It's a very, very pristine area, but luckily, just scrounging around in the dirt, I happened to kick up one single bottle cap, and that's the only bottle cap that I found or anything like that. Didn't find any aluminum cans or tin cans or anything like that. But when you're out there, one little thing like this could be huge. You know, I ended up making my first fishing lure out of a bottle cap like this, and you saw in episode 1 I caught that really nice rainbow trout off of it. But what I did was take this bottle cap, I took a little bit of paracord, the sheathing off the paracord to make a skirt, and then I took a little bit of the trap wire to make the eyelet and then also the part of the lure that held the hook. So I'm just gonna take a little segment, I'll cut it a little bit long, I'll end up cutting it off. And we'll bend this over to make an eyelet. There's a way that you can twist this to break it off. I learned how to do that making kingfish rigs down in Florida. Used to fish the kingfish tournaments. And wire leaders are a must with kingfish. All right, so next, I've got the eyelet. I'm gonna figure out how long I want it. So now I'm gonna slip my hook over this. So to break that off right at the wire, you just bend it into a 90, grab it, and twist. Careful not to hook yourself. And it'll break off evenly. So there you go, there's that. So now we'll make the skirt. Pull the cores out, set those to the side. Slide that right up on there. So now I'm just going to take one of these cores, and if you don't secure this, the front will fray, and you don't really want that. You want it to stay together because it's, you know, when fish hit it, they kind of thrash it up a little bit. And then just through the casting and using it, they can get a little bit beat up. This is like a whip. This is called whipping. It's the same way that bowstrings are served. And it's a really tight method for wrapping. There's no loose ends. Ow, that hook will get you. Don't have to have any glue or anything like that. Now, I don't have a fire going here, but if I did, just putting a little bit of heat on that and kind of cinching all that stuff together would be a good idea. So there we go, we've got that part taken care of. So there you go, that's all there is to it. Nothing fancy, but it was enough to do the trick. You know, you just, when you're out there, you just gotta figure out how to use what you have, because you don't have a lot. You can't just run down to the tackle store and grab something. Other than this, you know, I made some spoons out of bone. I made one out of antler. I made one out of just trapping wire, where I just took a long shank hook and just started wrapping wire around it just to try to get the weight up. Made kind of a little jig with a skirt on it like this. And I actually took, most of the paracord that I took was orange like this, but I did take a couple of sections. I took some yellow paracord, I took some pink paracord, just short sections just for doing this type of stuff right here. The biggest problem that I had with this lure out there was the weight of it. This thing doesn't weigh hardly anything. And so with the rod and reel that I made and the 10-pound test, I could cast this thing maybe 15 yards, which was just far enough to kind of get to where the water was getting somewhat deep if I walked out on that rock point where you saw me. But anywhere else, there was one other place on my shore where I could have gotten to deep water with this. But had I not had those two places where the rocks kind of jutted out into the water, it would have been very tough. So on my site, most of my shoreline, the vast majority of my shoreline was really gradual into deeper water. So there was no drop-offs close to the shore. And I only had two places where I could have cast to deeper water where the fish were. One of them was on that rock point where you saw me catch that fish in episode 1, and then the other one was, you know, a mile the other way. And I'm sure that some of the folks out there had shorelines just like that, and maybe even worse than that, where they didn't have any access to deeper water. And so the fishing was not easy. It was very tough fishing, even with the rod and reel. And I think if I'd have had a commercial rod and reel and a full tackle box, I still think it would have been tough at that time of year when the weather's starting to cool off. I just think that the fish move off into deeper water where you don't have access to them unless you have a boat. And so it's gonna be, I'm very interested to see how Colter's gonna do with that little canoe that he made out of the tarp. That may end up being, you know, it's a risky thing, and people talk about it all the time. There's a lot of risk going out on the water, but in a situation like this, that might make the difference. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for this video. I'm looking forward to tonight's episode to see how everybody does. I get the question on occasion, like, have I seen all of these episodes, or have the contestants seen all these episodes? And the answer is no. We're watching right along with everybody else, so we have no idea what's going to happen week to week. And it's really fun to see, first of all, how they use the footage that we gave them, and then secondly, just to see what everybody else was doing at that same time period. So yeah, History Channel, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central. We'll see you there. And then also, I'll probably do a recap video the next day on Friday, so come back to the channel and check that out, and I'll give you my thoughts on what happened. We'll see you.